I was raised in a different era. The set of values that y'all use can never perish. Y'all confuse celebrity with integrity, so I regrettably readily expose what's in the mirror.
You brought up Xzibit, and of course, he's on the Lock Sessions Volume 2 with the With God song that also features Rex, Kaz, and Brevi. And that song is first on there. And I was interested because you talk about how people confuse celebrity with integrity. So what made you say that, and how have you seen that unfold?
I think that actually came from a conversation with X. You know, we were driving or somewhere at the time. We were kind of like talking about that. And that track, my boy D-Cap did that. And I was like, yo, I think this would be a dope track to get X on. And I sent it to him. He's like, that's fire. I was like, okay, I'm gonna do my verse. I'm gonna send it to you. And then so I just kind of like automatically just like went back to some of those conversations, you know, like talking about how the game is different, how he navigates it. And I was like, okay. And I just kind of like took some of that information and just like put it in my perspective, you know, and put it in the verse. And yeah, just sent it. And they, you know, he did his thing. He made it a song because he put Brevi on it and took some of the lines I got and kind of made a hook out. She made a hook out of it. And then he's like, yo, I got a surprise for you. Then Raz guys. So I was like, oh, this just became like a fucking classic. So that was dope. But yeah, I just try to take the information and those lessons and I just put it in a song. And I think that's a skill that I've developed, that I've gotten better with. Like I've had other rappers or producers, and literally like I've had conversations and I'll put that information in a song very seamlessly. I feel like that's some of my best work is when I can do that. You know, taking from conversations or experiences. Not like people be like, oh, do you read a lot of books? I'm like, I mean, not as much as I would hope I would, you know, but I do just take information in, you know what I mean? Like conversations, like I have people that are in my life outside of music that are like mentors, and I take that information and I put it in my art, you know?
And what's another main or another good example that comes to mind of that?
What's another? Black Holocaust. That was on Lock Sessions 2.
Okay.
Yeah, I think that's just having a conversation about everything that was going on. Like I was just, you know, the whole George Floyd and all that stuff was going on. I was just really frustrated, and I was having conversations just about, you know, just deep conversations with people and a mentor of mine. We were just talking about just the whole political climate of, we're going back to like the time of the compromise of 1877. You know what I mean? About that whole presidential election and that whole stuff. And I was like, yeah, that's true. And it just like, I kind of went back and researched that, and it just kind of primed my mind for making a song like that. Volume 3, a song like Fear, looking at, I think I was just like on YouTube looking at freestyles and different stuff and other people. And I was just like, that's dope. So it just kind of like, I don't know, it just kind of inspired me. I was just like, all right, let's have a conversation. All right, I'm gonna have a conversation about how I feel, you know? So I just put that directly into raps, you know?
Okay. Makes sense. And with the Lock Sessions Volume 2, you also have the Blasphemy cut with Crooked I, King Crooked. And on that one, I wanted you to explain, as somebody that loves all rap, I've always found it so interesting, the non-gangster rappers from California and how they're perceived in the industry, but then also by the average fan. And you talk about in Blasphemy about representing the West. So what, for you, what's been your experience of being a super lyrical dude, not being a gangster rapper, not being from LA, not being from Oakland, San Francisco, but still repping the West as hard as you do? How has that been for you, and how has that affected you, if at all?
Well, I love it. You know, I love it, man. I love the challenge. You know, it obviously has shaped me because, you know, it is a little different, but, you know, I've always gotten respect. I feel like, you know, obviously, you know, the gangster rap from LA, and then kind of like the stuff that 40 and Short has done, kind of like that kind of player type of persona, you know, has kind of been more dominant here. in the Bay, but I love that stuff. So it's not, but it does, you do kind of develop like that sense of like, okay, I got to prove to everybody like I'm just as dope and in my own way. But I love it. You know, I think it's great. I think it's I love being who I am because it makes you, you know, it makes you who you are. It makes you unique. So I love that. I love the fact that I'm different. And but I have respect for what everybody else does too, because I understand that that's a deep skill too, to be able to, you know, do whatever you're able to do and to be successful like that. But I love it, man. I love the challenge. I love having my own lane and just trying to create even my own lane within that genre. But, you know, the Bay is diverse. You know, it's a pretty diverse place. You know, you had High Road and all that stuff. You had Hammer, Too Short 40, you know, new and up and coming guys, you know, so it's been diverse. Hopefully I'm just one of those, you know, artists that are just part of that diversity.
I would say you are. And also with Blasphemy, one of the other things I loved about it was the usage of Funky Worm. So shout out to Drugs Beats on that. But the thing is that obviously that sample's been used dozens of times, if not hundreds of times. Mm-hmm. So for you, how were you able to bring something different and use it in a way that helped you articulate what you wanted to articulate?
Well, Drugs, that beat is just fucking fire, man. To me, I was just like, because I've heard Funky Worm. Funky Worm, every part of that song has been sampled and used, but I just never heard nobody use it the way he used all the pieces, and it was just like crazy. And that's on actually I heard that at Xzibit studio. He was like playing beats, and I was just like, "Yo, what's that?" He was like, "Fuck with it, do something with it." I'm like, "What?" And I just never heard anybody just like kill it like that. I was like, "Yo, all these elements are like." You know, it's like N.W.A. Dope Man. It's like MC Breed. It's like, you know what I mean? Like Nipsey Hussle, Crisscross, like so many classic, and it just mix it all and the way it's moving. I was just like, ooh, this is crazy. And then I just start rapping to it. I had no idea what I was going to talk about. I just started rapping. You know, I just went with how I felt, you know, and just start rapping. And I sent it to Xzibit, and he was just like, that shit is hard. He's like, you need to make the hook the first part of your verse. You need to like rearrange it and make that the hook. I was like, oh yeah. And then I just kind of rearranged it and kind of made it like the hook. And then, you know, sent it to Crook, and Crook just murdered it. You know what I mean? But that beat, that's just fire. Just shout out to Drugs beat. That's just a fire ass beat. Like, I mean, I've heard that sample, but to me, I think that's the best way it's been sampled in a very long time.
Yeah, it's incredible. And just hearing it, and then what you and Ken Crooked did on there, man, I was just like, this is.
And on a side note, I don't know, I had a show with Corrupt, you know, in Montana, and it was my first. I want to say it was the first time I performed in a long time. Obviously, was it earlier this year or it was late last year? And I was on the show with Corrupt, and you know, I went on right before him, and I'm performing. You know, and this is my first time performing that song, you know, and I come back and Day One, I'm sure you know Day One, right? Some other guys, everybody was like, Corrupt was like, yo, what the fuck is that beat? Like, who is he? Who is that? I mean, and he's like, oh, that's live. So I was just for him to be like, yo, and I was just like, and so I've been talking to Corrupt. We're going to do some stuff together, but I was like, oh, that would have been ill if I could have had Crook and Corrupt on there, you know what I mean? Like that, maybe just do like a remix or something, but that would have been like ill, like, you know. So it made me feel good to hear another dope West Coast lyricist to be like, yo, the way they flip that shit is crazy, you know?
Yeah, absolutely. And please do that remix. That would be amazing.
That would be ill.
Absolutely. And also on Lock Sessions 2, you have the Sign song. And you talk about writing with a slight temper, which I thought was an interesting revelation. So what does writing with a slight temper, how does that affect you, would you say?
Oh, I think it goes back to having that little bit of edge. You know what I'm saying? Just that little bit of chip on my shoulder, you know, from all the things we talked about, you know, whether it's being from the West Coast, whether it's being from Richmond, wanting to compete with the top lyricists wanting to complete with it. I just want to do everything, man. Like, and I think sometimes that may hurt me, but I think overall it helps me because I just want to be good at everything. You know, I want to be the best battle rapper. I want to be the best lyricist. I want to make the best deep songs. I want to make the best, like, I just want to do it all. So I just feel like, and I feel like I can, if I just focus in on it and put it together. And that's what kind of keeps me motivated. So I guess that's what I mean by having a slight temper, like having that chip on my shoulder. That's the edge.
Yeah. Because even on Knock 'Em Down, you talk about putting the music first. And when you do that, that leads to, I would argue, the type of career that you've had where you've been able to sustain yourself and not fall to kind of whims of other things happening.
That's dope that you say that, because even like I've been taking a break. I put out Lock Sessions 3 in March, right before I went back on the road with my homie Stevie Stone from the Midwest. We went on the road. We went on a tour for like six and a half weeks, and I put that project out right before I went on the road. And then I just came home and I was just like, okay, what do I want to do? I kind of took a break, not because I wasn't inspired to make songs, but more so like, how do I want to convey my songs? How do I want to convey my message? How do I want to put it out there to the world? What approach do I want to take? You know, because all those things are kind of factored into the music. Like I don't want to control my music, but I know the way I present my music, I'm very particular about every avenue, the music, the visuals, the way I present it on social media, the way it's presented to the world. So I've been taking my time and figuring out like, okay, what do I feel comfortable with? How do I want to approach it? Because at the end of the day, I know the music is the most important thing. So I want to make sure that I make music that's important. And when I convey it, it magnifies or pinpoints how the importance of the actual music, the actual content, you know? So that's what I've been kind of doing, just kind of taking like a hiatus from releasing anything new and just like focusing in on what I'm, you know, the new music. Cause I feel like I said, the music is always first. That's the most important thing to me.
Yeah. And that's always the funny thing, because whether any form of entertainment, whether it's music or sports or what have you, people, I've seen many times, once they get to a certain level of success, the thing that got them there, they kind of discount and move away from. But it's like, no, that's why you're here. And that's why people love you. So if you're doing a commercial or doing all this other stuff, you still have to maintain a certain level of credibility and relevancy in what you're doing. And I don't know why people forget that, but
it happens, man. You get caught up, you know, you're making money, you're doing stuff, and you're like, okay, well, just put some music out. You know, I was like, you know what? I don't want to get to that point. You know, I want to make sure I want to lock in and focus in on this, you know, for as much as I can, because that's what I feel most comfortable with. You know, like I feel it's nothing more exhilarating to me than creating something that you feel great about, you know, that you feel like, okay, wait till people hear this. How's this going to affect people? You know, like to me, that's the most important thing.
Yeah, absolutely. And that also ties into, as someone that's been following you for a long time, I believe that you put a lot of time and thought and care into what you do. So, and that's something when you mentioned No Question, the Apollo Brown project, about the kind of the pre-production element of it, of getting ready so that when you were there in Detroit with him working on the project, you were able to focus on it or execute it differently. Mm-hmm. So that being said, when you do, given that you've done projects certain ways, either all with one producer, like No Question, excuse me, or embedded, or different things you've done, I should say, mm-hmm. How do you find when you do the pre-production, like you did for No Question, it affects your performance, your execution, your delivery, all of that process?
Excuse me. With No Question, that happened very quickly. Like I wish, like hopefully, we talked about it before. Hopefully I would love to do another project with Apollo, because I hit him up because we had talked about doing a project before. I believe his label had reached out. And they were like, yo, would you be down to do a project with Apollo Brown? I was like, yeah, of course, let's try to do it. But I think at that time we both, it went the time frame that they wanted to try to do it. He was like doing a new project. I was in the midst of like, I think about to go on the road or something. So the timing didn't work out. Then when I was working on my next project, I just wanted to get a beat from him. So I just hit him up like, yo, Apollo, bro, I still want to work with you. I'd love to get a track. He was like, well, what you doing right now? I was like, well, I'm just working with what's up. He's like, but why don't we do a project and EP? I was like, all right, what's up? He's like, but we got to do it this time because I got this window. I was like, let's just do it. So we did that in a very short amount of time. I want to say, it was wrote, recorded, and mixed in less than 2 months. You know what I'm saying? Like, for sure. I think the mixing is what took probably the longest time, So he sent me the beats. He would just send me a batch of beats. He would send me like 4 at a time. I usually pick like at least 2 out of each batch. And then we just started. And then I think I probably would like come up with like the first verse because he was like, well, look, here's what we got to do. We got to do it in Detroit. I want to be there. That's the way we do it. And you got to come to Detroit in like 2 weeks. I was like, damn, 2 weeks. Like it was something like that, in like 2.5 weeks. So he's sending me the beats. I'm basically kind of like writing maybe like a verse a day. I'll be like, okay, I'm just going to write. I'm going to start it off. I'm going to have it. So by the time I get to Detroit, I'll have at least like half the song, like a hook and a chorus or something, or, like a chorus and a verse. And then, so what I would do is we would go, so I would say like half of it done. And then we would go to the studio and I would record one song and then I would record like one or a song and a half one night. And then I would stay up after the studio and I would start working, finishing the next one. And the next day I would spend like the whole day in the room, just kind of like perfecting it or getting it to where the words had everything I wanted. And then we would go to the studio that night. We did that for like 3 or 4 nights in a row. And that's how we put it together, So that was just a very unique situation. And I like that because it challenged me too. I didn't have to work on the production at all but it was just like, okay, I had to kind of like, it was kind of like camp. Like, you're about to go away for 5 days. You got to get this done. There's no other time. You're not coming home. So I was up for it. I was like, okay. So I spent like the whole 2 weeks leading up, preparing myself, getting as much done as I can. By the time I got there, completing it, getting it done. And we got it all done. And then I want to say the one song, I forget the name of it. Litmus.
Okay.
I did that there. Like, that was just like, okay, I'm going to come up with this. I had some bars ready. I was like, I got these bars ready and I'm coming up with that like while I'm there. And then I was like, I was like, you got another beat? And he's like playing beats. And I was like, yeah, that one, and then we just did that there. So that was the only one that I didn't have any idea about before I got there.
And I want you to listen real close to me. I'm going to ask you some real simple questions. I want some real simple answers. Do you understand?
Yeah.
Do you understand?
Yes, I understand.
You said that you couldn't have possibly been at the crime scene at 11:15 because you were in the bookstore buying my audio book and my hardcover book at 11:15 when the crime scene occurred in Soren's book.
The history of gangster rap.
So you couldn't have been at the crime scene because you were buying the books.
Right. At 11:15, I was at the bookstore at 11:15, and when I bought the books and accidentally left them at the store.
So at 11:15, you couldn't have been at the crime scene because you were buying books, right?
At 11:15, when I was leaving, it was some people coming in. and I forgot to grab
But you don't remember who
what
those
they look
people,
like.
what they look like or nothing, right?
No.
So, at 12:15, you in the bookstore buying my audio book and hardcover book and Soren's book at 12:15. So you couldn't have been at the scene because you were buying the books, right?
Yeah, at 12, exactly, at 12:15 exactly, I was at the bookstore.
Now you see. You know you done fucked up.
Which
No,
one?
first you said you were at the bookstore at 11:15, and then you said it was 12:15. You know you done fucked up, man. He fucked up.
Yeah, he fucked up.
He fucked up.
Man, you confusing me, man.
So, you get my book, my audio book, 40 years, and Soren's book, History of Gangster Rap, and if you don't, you know you done fucked up, right?
Man, the more those cops ask me questions, the more I wish I bought them motherfucking books.